Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan, and we are really glad that you decided to join us in the audience. Whether you're watching this pre-recorded show, which I may have to say many times tonight because people forget, whether you're watching this as a pre-recorded show live, or if you're watching it on one of our websites or YouTube, we're really glad that you're here. And if you're listening on one of the many podcast broadcasting stations we listen to, we're really glad that you're here.
Yes, we are. I want to remind everybody on Saturdays that we have episode Rewind, and here in the States, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. Every Saturday is episode Rewind. The next Meet the Author live is going to be on the 21st of February, as long as everything goes well. This is a pre-recorded show that we're doing right now. But Stephen McGuire is the guest, and it'll be episode 144. Reminding everybody also about the fact that we're on Thursday nights in Atlanta, Georgia on WDJY FM 99.1 for a broadcast there, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, US. And you could also listen to that actual episode. If you don't live in Atlanta, you can go online there to the radio station, www.wdjyfm.com, and catch that episode there. We're replaying a lot of old episodes on there for sure.
Eventually it'll catch up, right, and it'll be the new episodes. But right now we're doing old episodes on that station.
Reminding everybody also about some good podcasts for authors. And one is Voice of Indie podcast with Beam Weeks and Gary G's. There's a little blurb at the end of our show that'll tell you how to get over to that. It's normally following our show on Wednesday nights. And then also Book World, The Great Escape with CJ Peterson and Mike Clifton. Those are both really good podcasts. And keep
not on this channel.
Not on this channel. They've got their own
channels.
Mm-hmm. But on YouTube and Facebook. Anything else you want to talk about today?
I say let's bring on our guest tonight, who is all the way in England.
So come on in. Hi, David.
Hello. Good evening.
Welcome aboard.
How are you doing today? I won't say tonight because it's not night where you are. So
it is night.
Oh, it is night where you are, and it's actually daytime where we are. But it'll be night when this is broadcast. This is very confusing.
How are you doing tonight?
Time zones are wonderful. A friend of mine is an astrophysicist, and I asked him to explain time zones to me, and I played it over very quickly. Yes, doing okay over here in merry old England. Bit nervous about the show, but
don't be.
Relax.
It's an easy show.
Piece of cake.
Why don't you tell us why you became an author?
Well, that's the big question.
Yeah, it is.
For many, many years since I was small, I was writing stories when I was a little child, pencil and paper. Kind of put it off for a lot of years while I bit and bobbed around various careers. I decided a few years ago, it would be about 10 years ago now, I was going to do it seriously. So I started thinking about the ideas that I had. I had thousands of ideas. Narrow it down, which ones do I want to work on? And I settled on military science fiction for my first go and started working on that.
Were you a reader before that? An avid reader, or?
Yes, like all authors, I was a reader first. It's actually quite funny because when I was tiny and going to school, I didn't want to learn, and they made you do it as it was the 80s. But I'd rather make up what the story said than actually learn how to read. To me, that seemed easier. And of course, I didn't get it. So I was sat in remedial classes and things as a little one. And the light bulb moment was when I was sat waiting to go to bed. I was waiting for my mum to come up and read a bedtime story. And my dad came in and he said, "Well, if you learn to read, you don't have to wait." And I went,
This is truth in this statement.
Yeah, it annoys me when he's right about things.
So what was your favorite genre when you were a kid?
When I was little, the bedtime stories were often things like Robin Hood, Three Musketeers, that kind of thing. But from a tiny age, I was watching cartoons like Transformers, He-Man, that kind of stuff. So fantasy, science fiction. My toys were that kind of thing. I had a great heap of Transformers and He-Man figures and Micro Machines and all those. I'm dating myself terribly now. But that sort of thing. And I was always interested in sci-fi from a tiny age. I can't remember a time when I wasn't. That and dinosaurs. I was mad for dinosaurs, as many little boys are.
Well, I'm still mad for dinosaurs. I think they're fascinating.
And dragons.
And dragons. If dragons were real, I'd be a
Yes.
very happy camper.
I think they are.
I love dragons.
Well,
So you really liked science fiction. Can I ask you, did you like Doctor Who?
we were all of us in the family keen on Doctor Who. My mum was a big Doctor Who fan. Her brother, my Uncle John, was a massive Doctor Who fan. When he died, they carried him into his funeral to the theme from Doctor Who. He was so avid. And
Did they like Tom Baker? Was that their favorite Doctor Who?
Tom Baker was my mum's favourite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine was John Pertwee when I was a kid. I
Oh,
thought he was
really?
Yeah, because he did the newsy and martial arts and he duffed people up, whereas the other doctors never did that. So I thought that was great.
Yeah. I liked them all, but I think I had quite a few favorites.
Me too. It's hard to nail one down,
Yeah.
or pick one.
But we are forever grateful.
A few were weird.
What?
A few were, yes.
Yeah, I think they reached the peak of weirdness with Colin Baker, I think, as the Sixth Doctor. He was very bizarre. That was the 70s, so that was, as I understand it, a weird time.
Colin Baker, remind me, did he wear the celery in his lapel?
He had the multicoloured coat that looked like something out of a musical theatre, like
Right.
And he had the blonde hair, the big blonde hair.
Yes.
I think he was probably my least favourite when I used to watch it as a kid. But I did see the last season of Sylvester McCoy's run when it went out live. So I'm really dating myself. That was in 1989. So I was a little kid. We used to all crowd in to watch it. And then, of course, it got cancelled.
I really liked Sylvester McCoy. Yeah, I liked him.
Yeah,
as
he was
Tom.
good. He was good, and they had good stories for his run. Some of the best shows they did were in Sylvester McCoy's run.
Yeah.
They had Remembrance of the Daleks, which was my favourite.
Oh, you gotta love the Daleks.
Yeah.
Absolute classic, yeah. The Doctor made out of a salt shaker, a sink plunger, and an egg whisk.
Yeah.
And sneakers.
And the sneakers sticking out at the bottom. I love that. You often see sneakers sticking out. It's great.
Those days, they had
Yeah.
250 to make the whole season, and they had to make it last.
And another thing we're thankful for is Monty Python.
Oh, yes.
Can't forget
Old
Monty Python.
Yes.
Very big in the internet memes community is Monty Python. I was never a huge fan. I laughed at Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but a lot of it's too silly. But I like John Clegg.
Oh, yeah. You think cows going over a castle wall is silly? Or grown men riding tricycles in the park? It's silly.
The Ministry of Silly Walk.
Ministry of Silly Walk, thing, right? Or my brain hurts. Yeah, everything they did was silly.
Those were the day.
Can you tell we really liked Monty Python?
I like Faulty.
Pardon me?
I like Faulty Towers better than Monty Python.
Faulty Towers, yeah.
Faulty. Yeah, see, Britain's brought us so many good shows, and then there are a bunch of your shows we now watch as serials here, and we Americanize them, you know? You anglicize them, we Americanize them. Anyway, they start there, like Ghosts. We now have Ghosts here. But we do it with all American ghosts. But we also have the UK ghosts because we can watch BBC America. So
yeah, they're quite big over there now.
Have been for ages, a really long time. Yep. Well, we should really maybe talk about your book.
About book? Yeah, that could be something we could do. Yeah.
All right, so let's bring up your first book, and we're going to let you pronounce it so that everybody hears it correctly.
Yes, so the title is The Orlais Stratagem. And then
The Orlais Stratagem.
2 parts. So part 1, Slave Ship. And then I'll wait for you to bring up the other book cover.
Sure.
So part 2,
Aurora.
Can you give us a little idea on the plot without giving much away?
Yep.
Yes, so it's the start of a military sci-fi or space opera series. It is set in a region of space called the Orlais sector, which is between the 2 major powers in the area, which is the Confederacy of Bellona and the League of Independent Systems. The sector is beset by piracy, and the Confederate Navy responds with more and more ships to patrol the region. And as the Aurora is one of the assigned ships, they go out looking for the bad guys, and they find some and they blow them up. And it, of course, transpires there's more going on than just a few bad guys hanging about. But you'll have to read the book to see what that is.
Find out what that is. Mm-hmm. And so the Aurora, I get that. That's the ship. And what does slave ship mean? Is that something that they run into, or what?
So the slave ship is kind of the major antagonist of the first book, and then that all gets resolved. And the second book, the bigger plot is resolved.
Do you plan on having a third book in the same series?
The next book is in planning, very slow planning. My planning process is very detailed and involved, so I spend a lot of time writing outlines and character bios, and I list everything that's going to appear. So I've got a list of ships that are in it. I've got a list of people that are in it, places they're going to. It's also that when I'm writing the book and furiously banging around the keyboard, I don't have to then stop and go, oh, I need a name for a ship. Oh, I need a name for a star system. I've
There
done
you go.
I just have to flick the other document and go, yes, that's where they're supposed to be now. And away I go.
Well, it has to, you kind of have to have those lists or you forget, you know. I know when we're writing, we're like, wait a minute, did she have red hair or blonde hair? Or so we need a list of things or you know, because you get so involved in the story, you've got to have that running along beside you.
I find it absolutely invaluable to have a plan and an outline ahead of time. As I'm sure you know, not everybody works that way.
Nope.
There's a lot of people that don't.
Actually, that would have been one of our next questions, is whether you're a plotter or a pantser, and you just answered that you're a plotter.
Yes, and I'm the extreme end of the plotter, where I write a scene by scene outline. So it's almost like stage directions, and I'll then flesh it out into the script that you will then read. If I showed you the plan, you'd think, oh, crikey, you know, he's written the book and then he's written the book again. But
you could almost use it like a screenplay, though, right?
Yeah, he could.
Yeah, although a lot of things change between that outline.
That's true.
The finished book, which is it's kind of an argument I have on Twitter regularly with the people that are pantsers. And the big is always, well, if you outline it, where's the creativity? And I always say to them, well, if you come up with something better, you can just change the plan because it's for you. It's not, no one else has to ever see it.
Your creativity is up front.
Yeah, your creativity.
You're still being creative.
Yeah, that you're still.
What the heck are they talking about? That doesn't make sense.
I just think it's a different style of writing, whatever you're comfortable with.
There's not as much spontaneity. Maybe that's what they're going for.
But like he said, if something happens and all of a sudden he's like, wait a minute, you know,
and you got to go look something up and figure out a name and all that. That slows the whole process down. How spontaneous is that? That's not either.
I think the bottom line is you either do the work at the front or you do the work at the back. Because if you write it,
done.
We kind of put it in the middle.
Well, there's in the middle as well. But if you think, if you sit and write it and just let it flow out and you've got no idea what you're doing beforehand, you've then got to tidy that up and you've got a huge editing job, which is the same amount of work as I've put in at the front to plan and outline. I then have much less to do in editing. But then saying that, I stare at it and I keep changing lines and I keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So you got to edit whatever you try.
We're more of a hybrid, you know, we're not really plotters and we're not really pantsers. We're kind of a blend. But we find that as we're writing, the character will lead you in a different direction than you intended to go as you're fleshing out that character and it's becoming a real person. Do you run into that too? Is that when you have to kind of change your plan?
Yeah, yes and no. So I never have that idea that the characters talk to me.
Oh, really?
I have that where I see people talk about it. Again, I'm going to reference Twitter a lot. But they talk about it as though they're having a conversation with the character and asking them what would they do in the situation. I don't have any of that. But as I'm working, I will come up with something. So I've outlined the scene and this is going to happen in the scene and then that's going to happen and these people are going to talk for a bit. But I haven't written the dialogue yet. So I'm coming up with what are they saying in the moment.
So that brings me to another question. Do you feel like your characters are real people?
This is one thing that I've never bought into. And I see this a lot in the writing community. Oh, my characters are real. They have agency. And I sort of look at them. So it's all inside your head. You do realise that. And they get upset. You know, oh, you can't talk like that. But I invented that person, and I invented the world that they live in, and I invented
Yes.
the clothes that he wears, and I invented the places that he goes. It's not real. It's from my imagination. Do I want him to appear real to the reader? Yes, absolutely. But I never sit there and think somewhere out there in space he's really there.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that, when I say the character is real to me, I don't mean I really think they're walking around someplace. I mean that I know who that person is because I did create it, and they are real in my head. That world is real. That is a real town. Those are real people. In that sense, it seems real to me. Not in the sense of I really think they're real. That might be a little bit schizophrenic, I think, if you actually thought they were real. You'd have a problem.
Felt like that.
It's true.
But yes, I get what you mean. It's real in your
Mhm.
mind because you spend so much time thinking about it. You've fleshed everything out. You
Yes.
know what socks your characters put on, even if you
Yes.
don't put that in the book.
Exactly. You know who they are, you know what they think, what they like. You really get to know that character. That's exactly what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
It's time for our first break.
Believe it or not.
When we come back, folks, David's going to read for us a passage out of, I assume, book 1. Is that right?
Yes, from book 1.
Okay.
Excellent.
So hang on. Don't go anywhere, folks.
We'll be right.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Now comes part 4 in the Jaguar series by retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. In this saga, Brandon, Andrea, and Naja, the Black Jaguar, go deep into the Mato Grosso jungle on a mission to rescue 2 kidnapped children. During their journey, they encounter many dangers, including Yanomami Indians, bent on revenge for the murder of one of their warriors.
Return of the Jaguar is book 4 in the Jaguar series, starting with 2 faces of the Jaguar, the Lost City, and the Jaguar's Quest. All 4 are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other bookseller websites worldwide. Return of the Jaguar is a must-read.
The clock is ticking. Can Gracie uncover the truth?
Philip Pliant is the wealthy opportunist plastics dealer and CEO of Pliant Industries. He's also a master thief, creating a pervasive threat to the manufacturing infrastructure in the Caribbean islands markets. With the cartel as his stealth client, the naive city leaders have been seduced, enabling the production of more than 3-dimensional building materials.
The expected profits are monstrous.
Is the art group, now led by Gracie and the family heirs, strong enough to win against this predator?
Can JJ's cats act on the root cause analysis in time?
Will Gracie be able to squash Pliant and the cartels?
Gracie never considered their lives would hang in the balance. The clock is ticking. 5, 4, 3.
It's every parent's worst nightmare. Police officer Madison Jackson awakes to discover her baby kidnapped from her crib. Was it revenge for someone she arrested, or something far more sinister? Madison's estranged husband is incarcerated in Supermax. As the second in command of a deadly Mexican cartel, did he issue the order to abduct their daughter? Bye, Baby, Bye, from author Kelly Marshall. Get your copy today.
And we're back. Welcome back, everybody.
Hello. So, David, let's see. You want to read from
Ole Stratagem, the Ole Stratagem.
Part 1?
Part 1, Slave Ship.
Okay. With a dazzling flash and blaze of EM radiation, the light cruiser Aurora jumped back to normal space. As the energy burst from the hyperjump footprint cleared, Lieutenant Commander Patterson worked with passive sensors. The sophisticated arrays reached out for every scrap of radiation they could find, data scrolling across the tactical console's main sensor screen. Even as Patterson studied the readout, the navigational computer tapped into the sensor data to confirm the ship's position. "We've arrived in the Corey system, Captain," Lieutenant Singh reported from the navigation station. "Very well," Lewis acknowledged. "I've got something, Ma'am," Patterson called out. He narrowed his eyes, hands furiously working the sensor controls. "It's a ship. Small, too small to be a freighter." Commander Calder crossed the bridge to peer over Patterson's shoulders. "Agreed," he said. "If that isn't a warship, I don't know what it is." "A small courier boat?" Lieutenant Devereaux wondered. "No, energy emissions are too strong for that," Patterson said, hands flying over the console. "It's a gunboat," he said after a moment. "Computer's working on a firm identification, but it's definitely a gunboat." The captain nodded. "Mr. Singh, plot an intercept course and feed it to the helm." "Aye, aye, ma'am," Singh answered, bending over his console. After a moment he straightened. "Course uploaded." Lewis nodded. "Chief, execute course." CSS Aurora fired her drives and leapt away from her hyperjump point. A furious jet of fusion fire blazed into space behind her as she burned towards the gunboat. "They've seen us, Captain," Patterson reported after a moment. "They're firing their engines, moving off." "Very well, Mr. Patterson," Lewis acknowledged. "Stay with them, helm." "Aye, aye, Captain," the CPO at the helm answered. "Action stations," the captain ordered. The bridge light went out, replaced instantly by sullen red lights, banishing all shadows. The action station's alarm blared out, a harsh, insistent sound, impossible to ignore. "All stations report ready for action," the XO called out after a few moments. "Captain, the computer can't identify the vessel firmly," Patterson reported. "The exact type doesn't appear in the database." "No great surprise, though," Calder said, crossing the stand beside the command chair. "There are so many classes of gunboat out there, we can't keep up to date." Lewis nodded. Every shipyard in the League and most of the Confederacy offered a variant of the basic gunboat design, never mind all the modifications carried out after the fact. "Mr. Devereaux," she said without taking her eyes off the sensor repeater, "hail the gunboat, order them to stand down and prepare to be boarded." "Signal away, ma'am," Devereaux answered a moment later. "Prepare a boarding party, XO," Lewis ordered. "Full marine complement." "Aye, aye, Captain," Calder answered, returning to his station. The gunboat continued to run, engines firing, accelerating the ship away from the cruiser bearing down on it. Aurora had too much of a head start, though, for the gunboat to get clear. As Lewis watched, the sensor feed showed an energy spike from the gunboat. "They've brought their fire control systems online," Patterson reported. "Stand by point defense," Lewis ordered calmly. "Mr. Patterson, prepare to fire." Space between the two ships was suddenly lashed by active sensor emissions. Fire control, radar and LiDAR blazed through the void, bouncing off the target ship and leaping back to sensitive detector arrays. Patterson worked his control, feeding more and more data into the fire control computer. A firing solution appeared on his display and he relayed it to the gun crews. The tactical system showed green across the board, all guns and missile tubes loaded and ready to fire. Point defense cannons powered up and swung around to face probable threat axes, ammunition feeds snapping into place. The ship shuddered almost imperceptibly as the 60-centimeter battery powered up, turrets swiveling to track the target. "Ready, ma'am," Patterson reported grimly. "Very well, Mr. Patterson," Captain Lewis acknowledged calmly. "Communications, order the gunboat to stand down immediately or they will be fired upon." "Sent, ma'am," Devereaux reported. He listened to his headset, fingers working controls on the communications console. He shrugged after a few moments. "No response, Captain." Lewis nodded. "Very well, Mr. Devereaux. Commander Calder, note this in the log." "Captain," Patterson suddenly shouted, "they're firing." The captain's head snapped around to spear the sensor repeater with her blue eyes. She saw the energy spike, the legend next to it dispassionately declaring "weapons fire" by way of explanation. Aurora shuddered as the pirate's first volley slammed home. Explosions blossomed into space, shells bursting against the cruiser's forecastle. "Mr. Patterson, you may engage the enemy," Captain Lewis ordered. "Aye, aye, ma'am," Patterson answered, fingers savagely stabbing the master fire control key. The deck vibrated as the light cruiser opened fire. The 60-centimeter guns thundered silently, jets of flame searing into space. The 30-centimeter battery following suit a moment later. The massive volley hurtled away from the ship, flashing across the void between the two vessels. The shells slammed home, exploding against the hull of the gunboat or bursting in space all around it. Explosions flashed, battering the small vessel even as it fired again, another salvo racing back to strike at the Aurora. Damage report, Lewis called out over the blaring of alarms. Minor damage, Captain, the XO reported after a moment. Engineering reports shell strikes in the forecastle, armour not breached. We've hit the enemy badly, Ma'am, Patterson said from the tactical station. I'm showing debris scattering into space and their energy emissions have dropped. Their active systems have stopped. Very well, the captain answered. Cease fire. Communications, all of them to surrender or be destroyed. No response, Ma'am, Devereaux called back after a moment. They're firing again, Patterson said. Explosions blossomed into the blackness of space as more shells struck the cruiser. Return fire, Lewis ordered. Take them down. Aye, aye, Captain, Patterson answered. Aurora fired again, shells slamming into the gunboat. The small vessel couldn't withstand the cruiser's firepower. Explosions ripped along its dorsal surface, thin armour breached in a dozen places. The gunboat's upper turrets were blown off, debris hurtling away as secondary explosions flashed deep inside its hull. The gunboat bucked once, then shuddered as a massive detonation blasted outwards. The ship was torn apart in a heartbeat, chunks of hull alloy flung in all directions. Target destroyed, Lieutenant Commander Patterson announced into the suddenly silent bridge. Stand down action stations, the captain ordered a heartbeat later. Survivors. Unlikely, Ma'am, Patterson answered. The gunboat was destroyed by a fusion reactor overload. Lewis nodded. Launch search and rescue shuttle, she ordered. Aye, aye, Captain, Calder answered after a moment. Shuttle away, he added as a report flashed upon his screen. Lewis nodded, settling back into her command chair.
Well, thank you. That was a very
engaging
graphic picture.
Yeah.
You could see it. So, do you have any romance in your stories, or is it all action?
The first two volumes have got a bit of hinting and flirting. That's about all that's in there. There's plans for relationships to develop as time goes on.
Yeah. So, in book 3, do you know where you're going with that?
Mostly, yeah. The plan is 2/3, 3/4 maybe finished. So I know what's going to happen in the story. I've just got to plan it all out properly, make sure that's all correct, and then I can actually start writing it, which has only taken me a year and a half to get to this point.
Do you find you have to do a lot of research? I mean, to get your science correct, or, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I have done a lot of research. I'm probably on a few watch lists for the stuff that I've had to research with nuclear weapons and military technology. Quite a lot of military history, naval traditions, uniforms, ranks, all that kind of thing. You mentioned the science. I have a reasonable grounding in science myself. But I mentioned before we start recording, I've got a friend who is an astrophysicist. He's a PhD astrophysics over in Greece, University of Athens, I think he works at. I've asked him a lot of scientific questions and I've ignored a good chunk of what he said. Make it easier to read. The thing to remember is space is really, really, really huge, and to have a space battle, have any kind of action and excitement, things need to be really close together, and they have to get close together really quickly. So when I gave him the book to read, he did comment things happen really quickly, and that is deliberate. So yeah, he's credited in the notes at the back of the book, and all the errors of science are entirely my own. But research, yeah, I've done a lot.
Well, we call that poetic license.
Yes, you have to take some liberties, otherwise a lot of things would be very, very boring and very, very slow.
Yes, and wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to the reader, and you'd lose them.
It is fiction, after all.
It is fiction. It's not reality. It's not nonfiction. So
yeah, it takes a bit of a backseat to the fiction at times.
yeah, you have to, otherwise, you wouldn't have a story. Because nobody's actually doing that. We know no people from Earth are out there fighting battles that we know.
They could be.
Who knows what we're going to find out? We're finding out very odd things all the time now.
Oh my goodness.
I think your government has been more forthcoming about UFOs and that sort of thing than our government has been.
There was a government investigation, as pretty much every country did. And I'm fairly sure the conclusion was that UFOs were not alien spacecraft. I did laugh a bit when I read about the French government investigation, and they concluded that they were, in fact, aliens. Nobody seemed to notice that at the time, but maybe that's because it's France. Who pays any attention to those guys?
Well, they do have a bureau of, UFOs there. They have a whole bureau dedicated to that. They've been really very open. Our government came out, you probably heard, and said, with all the things that our Navy has captured on film and has been shown on the press, they finally came out and said, well, they're not ours and they're not theirs. So they didn't come right out and say they're alien, but they said it's nobody on the planet Earth that is doing that, because it's impossible what those ships did. So
it's been going on since the 50s, so, and before that.
And before that, but
yeah.
the 50s,
especially it accelerated in the 50s.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, there was, I think the biggest sort of spate of it before that was during the Second World War, when air crews regularly reported what were called Foo Fighters at the time.
Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters.
Mm-hmm.
The assumption they were.
How far are you from
Rendlesham?
Rendlesham?
I'm not sure. We've got a few RAF stations relatively nearby. Some other chaps are near here. I can't think off the top of my head the name of the RAF base, but it was where the young motorbike rider was killed the other year. That's just and not much further in the other direction is RAF Bryce Norton, where the repatriated bodies came in. So because we're in the Midlands, there are a lot of the RAF bases were built around here during the war, and a lot of them are just sort of empty. But yeah, we've got an American presence just up the road, so I semi-regularly see the Osprey tilt rotors go over. They make a terrific noise, those chaps. The other week, I spotted an Apache gunship fly over the house. That was only the second time I've ever seen one, which was nice. Because as you can doubtless imagine, I'm quite into all things military.
Yes.
Thanks to my main thing, I'm less interested in the aircraft, but I will certainly go and look if something like an Apache's floating about. I will go and go past.
Yeah.
And make comments about the weapons. I like the weapons. People look at me funny over here. It's it's not a popular interest to have in the UK, but I stick with it.
Oh, well, we live quite near Central Command, and it's an Air Force base. MacDill is right near us, so we see a lot of military aircraft all the time.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I suppose it gets old hat after a while if you're really close to one.
No, it doesn't.
No. Well, we know when things are ramping up.
Yeah, we can always tell if something's going on in the world because they all take off and you're like, okay, what's going on?
The best we get for that sort of thing is we hear a sonic boom, and it always sounds like something different. There was one went over when I was at work in the office, and it sounded like a bird had flown into the windows. It was sort of bong.
Yeah.
What was that? And then you found out later that an RAF Typhoon had gone over at supersonic speed because some silly character had turned his radio off or something. And it makes those RAF types jumpy, you know?
Yeah. Well, we live right across the state from Cape Canaveral. And so whenever a rocket goes off or, SpaceX goes off, we can actually watch it from our house and often do. And we don't get tired of that either. It's amazing.
US, don't you?
Pardon me?
So you like fireworks over there?
Oh, yeah.
That's too much.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
When they take off, like
Beautiful.
early in the morning and the atmosphere is really cold, it is like a beautiful picture that they paint as they go off.
All the different chemicals in the air, from the gases, It's beautiful the way the sun's hitting them,
And then the way it comes drifting down.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that around here. So we're too far from the equator for space launches to be effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty to watch. It really is. Well, and Rob used to be an air traffic controller. And so when he was an air traffic controller, he could actually go over and sit with the astronauts while they were having breakfast, their families, while they were taking off. So.
Yeah. So it's time for our last break, our second break here, last break. When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about your publishing journey, okay? So hang on, everybody. Don't go away, and we'll be right back.
Paradise, my prison. Charlie Flint awakens from a deep sleep and finds himself alone on a tropical beach surrounded by a palm tree jungle and exotic animals. He cannot remember who he is or anything about his life. First, he must find food and build shelter and protect himself from hidden dangers. As his memory gradually returns, it reveals what a very flawed person he is. A man who made too many mistakes, made too many enemies. The implications of the truth are staggering. How did Charlie get there? And will he save himself? Paradise, My Prison is the riveting new suspense thriller from retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. Paradise, My Prison by George Dismukes is available in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats worldwide.
Step into the captivating world of skullduggery, where a family of isolated peasant copyholders finds themselves thrust into a web of danger that threatens their very existence. Set against the tumultuous backdrop of the English Reformation, this meticulously researched historical mystery unfolds with a cast of both lovable and despicable characters, immersing you in a fully realized world that's both utterly believable and fantastically unbelievable. Author Paul Rushworth Brown weaves a spellbinding narrative that transports you to Yorkshire, England, in the 16th and 17th centuries, offering an authentic and gritty portrayal of peasant life. The pages come alive with vivid descriptions, crafting an atmosphere that pulls you deeper into a story of crime, murder, and suspense like no other.
Hi, I'm Paul Rushworth Brown, author of Skullduggery, Red Winter Journey, and Demon Courage, just recently released. I hope you enjoy Skullduggery, the second edition. Cheers.
It's 1919, and Eric Laska returns from the war in Europe. Two new enemies await him in the small, coal-mining town he calls home. One is a threat to his relationship with Rebecca, the love of his life. The other, a bloodthirsty beast, is stalking the mining town residents. The townspeople suspect Eric of one of the killings. An old man and Rebecca's 11-year-old sister have seen the beast, but only Eric believes their story. To protect the town and clear his name, he's forced to prove the werewolf exists. Available on Amazon. The Horror Within by Marjorie Swift Doring.
And we're back.
We're back.
Again.
So, David, you are published by CAB Publishing. That's CAAB. What is that? Do you know what that stands for? I don't even know.
I think it's the initials of the people that work there. Got Chrissy.
Oh, well, that makes sense, but they pronounce it CAB.
I think so, yeah, because their logo's the Black London Cab. So
there you go. There you go. Which I was astounded by. In 1969, I went to England. I went to London, and I couldn't believe that they had those black cabs that I saw in the movies, and I was just really impressed by that. At any rate, digress. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're still about the black Hackney cab. You get them outside London as well, but they're much more common in London. Very roomy inside.
Yeah, we rode in a few.
You sit facing forward at the back, and then there's seats opposite you facing backwards.
And we got on the double decker too, so that's a whole different thing. That was fun.
Don't look quite the same.
Right. So,
what did you want to know about CAB?
How did your publishing journey go? How did you get signed up and all that?
Yeah, mine is a little bit unusual. Most authors that pursue traditional publishing have hundreds and hundreds of rejections. I didn't have that. I started to research agents. While I did that, somebody had mentioned CAB Publishing to me, so I thought, well, I'll query them while I work out what agents I want to go to. And it was about a month after I'd sent the query, they emailed me and asked for the full manuscript. So I sent that along. And then I think it was about 3 weeks later, they emailed me and said they wanted to publish it.
Wow,
So,
that was fast.
That was quick. Wow.
Yeah, they were quite keen. So I occasionally brag about it, but I don't want to do it too much because it really is unusual. And I was very, very lucky to be picked up by the first publisher that I queried.
Right, that's for sure. That's great. So pretty easy to work with, are they?
Very easygoing, yeah. I have approval on essentially everything, cover art, blurb, and so on. Editing, change, revisions, that kind of thing. I have to be happy before it's finished. The blurb I actually didn't write. I had a go at writing a blurb, and it absolutely stank. So they provided one for me. I did a synopsis, and that absolutely stank. So they sorted me out with that as well. The only bit that I wrote was the actual book.
The only bit, the important bit.
The important part, yeah.
Dedication, I wrote that, but that part's easy.
Do you have the same editor for each book?
For the two halves, it was the same editor, yeah.
Okay.
Imagine it will be again when the next book is ready.
Yeah.
Now, who does your covers?
Their in-house team, so I never got any of who they were.
Yeah, let's take a look at the covers again.
Okay.
Oh, they're very good. They're very well done.
Yes, very professional. And,
yeah, I would pick that. Well, that's good. Actually, I kind of pictured that was what was happening.
Yeah.
You just read.
Yeah.
It was from the first book, but
yeah, yes, and the second half has the big climatic battle, so there's a lot of ships with fire coming out and bits falling off. Going on. That's it.
Easy come, easy go. Yeah.
Bits flying around in space.
It's still fun.
There you go. I want to invite everybody to visit David's website, and it's davidclegg.uk, and it's DA for those that are just listening. It's DAVIDCLEGG.UK. And from there, you can get to his Facebook and Twitter links. and see all sorts of interesting things. You have a blog on there too?
There is a blog, yes. I'm very, very bad at writing blogs, so there's one on there. I really must do some more, but
there you go. It's hard to find the time to really plug
to
into
do
that.
everything.
Yeah.
So you have a newsletter?
I don't have a newsletter. There's no functionality on my website to do that at this stage, and there isn't anything to put in it anyway.
No news.
Ready yet.
If there were news, it would be in the blog.
Yeah, it's kind of the same problem I have with the blog. That what have I got to say? I haven't written the book yet, so
there you go. Okay, well, and if somebody wants to email you, they can do that at david.clegg14, the number 14, at gmail.com. That's david.clegg14 at gmail.com. I'm sure he'd be happy to hear from you, and I'm sure he'll get right back in touch with you.
Answer any questions that
Answer
you might
questions, especially if you're a new writer and would like some advice.
Now, how about where can we find your books?
So the website has sale links which takes you to Amazon. Amazon is the main platform. They're now also on Smashwords, and there's another platform that I can never remember the name of. They're on there as well.
Oh yeah, okay, that'll be easy to find.
Yeah, and you can order on waterstones.co.uk, which is the big bookseller in the UK. They're our version of Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
What's the name of that again?
That is Waterstones. So that's
Waterstones.
Waterstones.
I think you can order it through Barnes and Noble as well, but I'm not 100% sure on that because UK publisher, it's hard to get through the door with those guys. But Amazon, it's there anywhere in the world. My link on my website goes to amazon.co.uk, but you can just change it to amazon.com if you're in the States, or .au if you're in Australia, or whatever, wherever you are, it will still work.
Now, on Cab Publishing, do they link to your website as well?
I think they do. They've got a bio page for me, and there's a link to Amazon to get the books.
And what do you know their website?
Website. Yeah, they're just publishing.co.uk, so you can very, very easily. There was a link on my website because Cab used to have a direct sales link where you could order from them, but they've shut that down, so their sales links go to Amazon. So we removed that link. But on my Facebook and Twitter, there's links to their social media pages, and you can find everything through there. And equally to my email, I can be contacted on Twitter and on Facebook if anybody wants to ask me anything, get advice, or shout at me for and being picked up straight away. That works too.
Yeah, well, looks like we're running out of time here, so I want to thank you for joining us. Did you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, that hour certainly went fast.
It went really fast.
I think I do have one more question.
Okay.
So, has writing been everything that you hoped it would be?
I do this thing where I'm disappointed by everything. So, someone gives me a present for Christmas, and I have, oh yeah, this is great, and I'm just disappointed inside. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. So, yes and no, because I've got a book that is published and you can buy it from a real publisher.
It's exciting.
Yeah, but I'm not mega rich, and I'm not on Oprah Winfrey and them TV shows. So
she'll be on next.
None of us are.
She's our next guest, by the way.
But still, opening up that first, no, that'll never happen. Opening up that first book, though, and you wrote it the first time you held your book in your hands, that had to be thrilling, right?
I got a grin on my face when I got the Amazon link before it went live. that was the first time I really went, this is real. The other thing that I do is I just accept things. So if I walk down the street and I find a £50 note on the floor, I'll just accept it. I won't be dancing around going, yeah, this is brilliant. I'll just pocket it. So, you know, I got the email saying, we want to publish a book. Like, great, let's do that. Go through all the process. Here's the editing, here's the book cover and all that. Yeah, great, I like that one. Let's use that one. It was just sort of deadpan. And then Chrissy emailed me the link. So, it's going to be live on this date. Here's the link ready. And the first time I clicked it and my book was on Amazon, I got a big grin on my face then.
Cool.
Awesome. So thanks again for taking the time to join us today. And it was really great hearing about your books. Going to move you over to the side and stick with us until we come back to you. Okay. I want to remind everybody about episode rewind Saturdays, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time here in the States. And next Wednesday, join us at same time, same place for Meet the Author Live. And I guess until next time.
That's all, folks.
That's all, folks. See ya.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen G's welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie. And you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE